Okay, in Photoshop CS6 there is a new filter that came out which I love, which is a new blur filter. And I'm going to show you first the easiest one and show you how we can use these three filters. So let me duplicate the background. This is a photo of Paris with a lot of little highlights. You go in filter, blur, and here's the three new blur. Let's tackle the first one called field blur. What field blur does is a bit like Gaussian blur, but except there's a new option called the bokeh option, and that's the whole purpose of this. Now the way that filter works, you have a little circle, and if you move this up and down, it basically gives you the strength of that blur. Now the blur that you have is a bit different than the Gaussian blur, because it's a different type of blur, you know. It's closer to the blur that you have with a lens, and Gaussian blur makes a different type of blur. So let me boost this, so you can either do it here or you can do it there. Okay, that's just one option. For this blur is the first one, it's the easiest one, it's got just one option, but it's got this new blur effect, light bokeh. Check this out. When I move this to the right, it gives a little bokeh effect, which is this little circle. Now if I boost the blur even more, look at this, it makes a pretty decent background. I can even boost the bokeh effect, maybe not that much. Okay, something like this, and now I have a perfect background where I can put in a person, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. Then you have bokeh color. If you go to the right, it gives basically more saturation. So let's saturate this a little bit more, somewhere around this. And light range, when you move the black slider to the right, basically it just puts more contrast, if you want, on the bokeh. So let's keep it around this. Just move around the slider and see what it does. But you know, until you've got a background that you like. But you see how I went from one photo and did this? So you click on OK. And one thing you should know, this filter is taking the whole interface, the whole the whole of space of Photoshop, and using this new Mercury engine, so it's very fast. Okay, so I click on OK. So I have turned this photo of Paris into, wait a second, it's coming, into a nice background, something like this. Now let's go back into Bridge. Okay, and I'm gonna take this photo of this gentleman and drag and drop it into my folder. It's gonna open up Camera Raw, and I've already developed this photo. I click on OK. So the photo is here. Okay, I'm gonna make this bigger, something like this. All right, even bigger. Okay, let me zoom out. Okay, let me press enter. Command T to take back this, and let's make it even bigger. I want him to be really big. Okay, no, not that big actually. Not that big. Yeah, something maybe around like this. Okay. So now I just need to extract him. So how do you do that? Well, simple technique. You take the quick selection tool, and you select the gentleman with the quick selection tool as best as you can. Now I took him against a gray background. Oh, you see when you brush and you make selections, if you spill over like this, you can just make this brush bigger. You press Alt, and your brush becomes a minus, and you can just take out. You know, you basically minus out what you don't want to be selected and plus what you want to be selected. Okay, so I just click on plus, voila. And okay, once you've done the sort of like the big selection, you zoom in quite a bit, and you you go back on W to get back the quick selection tool. That's the shortcut, is W. Make this make your brush smaller and make sure you've got everything. It takes a bit of time and practice, but it's so much easier. The quick selection tool with the refine edge option, which I'm going to show you, changed my life. I used to take hours to make selections, and now it's easy as a breeze with these new options. I love it. This has been one of the biggest time saver for me, because I do a lot of composites, so I do a lot of extraction, and I only use the quick selection tool and the new refine brush settings. So okay, so just make sure, just go around the body and make sure everything is kind of properly selected. Okay, now we are ready to go into, let me zoom out a bit, into the refine edge. So make sure you're on the brush, because otherwise it's not going to appear. Refine edge, and let's choose reveal layer, on layer, so that I can see exactly how it's going to look on the final image. Okay, let's use this brush to make sure we get the hairs back. By default, you've got this edge detecting brush, so let's use this on that. Okay, so it's gonna get some hairs back. Okay, maybe here I think some of the eyes is missing. And let's use a smart radius, put a smart radius around 1.5. It's gonna make the selection a bit easier, a bit better around. Let's smooth slightly the selection and feather slightly the selection. Okay, that's not so bad, but it needs a bit of correction. There's some stuff which is a bit wrong here in the selection. See if I can correct it with that brush. I doubt it, because often that brush makes it worse. Yeah, it made it work, so you can Command Z that brush stroke. No, actually I'm going to keep it this way, and I'm going to correct it a different way. Okay. You see I have a little fringe here also around the face, which I don't like. And I'll show you how to take care of the fringe a bit later on. Basically, it's using the shift edge. Should take out the fringe. No, okay. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna tackle it a different way. Okay. All right. So we need to refine that selection. So let's click it. New layer with a mask. Click on OK, and let's take this and put it in the trash. So here we have our thing. Now I'm actually going to do different, because I want to get the I first want to correct the mask. So click on the mask, and let's zoom in on the face, and so there's something funky here with the hairs. So take a brush, make it small, make sure it's white 100%, and paint within the hairs to get it back. Make sure it's a soft brush. Okay, so that's cool. On the eyes, I want to make sure I get everything back. Okay, let's see if we can correct this here. So this, you have to be very delicate, with the brush, to make sure you get as much as you can back. Okay, there was a lot missing there. So that's, yeah, it's a bit time consuming, but I think it's worth it. Ooh, there was a lot missing there. No, not that much. Okay. Okay, then you just press X to go back on the black. Maybe right click and make sure the hardness is at 42%, like in the middle, so that your brush is not so soft. And you just have to correct it. It takes a bit of time, but it's worth it. It's worth it because simply it's worth it. Okay. All right. So now, our gentleman is in. Now there's a bit of a fringe there. So one technique that I use to take it out is I click on my selection, So it selects the character, click back on the mask and press Command J to have the, and I turn this off so that I have my character, you know, with transparent background. And then I go into layer, matting, defringe. And I usually put like 4 pixels, and check out, look at this, Command Z, so you see the before, see how there's a line here? Let me zoom in. See how there is a line here? Look at this, before, after the defringe, it took out the line, which is cool. Now, okay, we missed a bit of pixel there, but yeah, it took out some pixels there, so that was too strong. Okay, so let me undo that. Let's do it just on 1 pixel. So let's go back, Command J, oops, sorry. I just get back my selection. I press Command J, take this out, and I'm going to do the defringe, but I'm not going to do on 5 pixel, I'm going to do on 1 pixel. Just 1 pixel. Yeah, 1 pixel is better. Okay, yeah, something, there's still some stuff missing here. So I have to put this back. I'm going to put this back and create a mask, because I want to keep this fringe off here. I think it's nice on the face. So I'm going to create a black mask. So it's going to take out, the black mask is taking complete out what I've just done. But I'm going to bring that back in with a white brush at 100%, you know, just for this part, because it took the fringe out. I kind of like what it did there. So it kind of mixed both of, you know, I like what it did on the face, the defringe, but not what it did here. Here I still have some work to do. Yeah, I still have some work to do. Actually, I was not done with correcting my my thing here. Let's see, so let's go back. Okay, press X. It takes a bit of time, but it's kind of, oops, you just press X and, you know, make this mask as best as you can. There's no substitute, oops, sorry, for doing it, you know, by hand at 100%. Okay, so that's good. So okay, but the whole idea was not to show you, now you can merge these 2 layers into one. So you've got the person and you've got this new created background. Now, to further give the idea he was taken with like a very powerful lens, I'm now going to use, so I'm going to duplicate all we've done so far with Command Alt Shift E, as we've done before. And I'm going to use the second filter, which we haven't seen yet, which you go into filter, blur. Now we could take, we did the fill blur, which did the background. Now we're going to do the iris blur. Now the way the iris blur works, you see, I want to give the idea that he was taken with a very high-end lens. So you have a circle, which is anything which is within that circle is going to be sharp clear, and anything which is out of these corners is going to be blur. And as usual, the intensity of the blur, you decide here. Now, from this big spot to this spot is what you could say is the intensity, the feathering of the effect. And the great thing about it is you can, the feathering, you can make it bigger or smaller, and you know, and even you can do it individually. Let's see here. You see, if you press Alt, I can change my feather points completely, you know, as I want. Now, I want this to be more feathered, something like this. Well, let's make this a lot less intense. This was just to show you. I just want to blur a bit, you know, here and there, and make a very gradual. Let's press Alt to make sure that the face is really in focus. And yeah, and this, so it's like very, you see how he's blurry there? It helps give the illusion that you know, that he was taken with like an f2.8 you know, 300mm type of lens, you know. I think the blur is still a bit strong. I don't need that strong of a blur. So yeah, so you press Alt if you want to move the individual points. Or you can move the blur intensity here, and you just move around the circle as you want. But I want you know, make sure that he is very sharp. You can boost, you know, the power, you know, make it 100% or make it smaller. It's using the Mercury engine, which is very powerful. I'm going to do like a 9 blur, and it's really like a lens blur. You know, it's the same type of blur that you get on a lens. And don't forget, between the outer circle and the black and the big point is the feathering. So check this out. I'm going to click on OK. See how he's totally in focus, and now how this is out of focus, and this is clear. If you find that the effect is too strong, you can just, you know, lower the opacity of the effect. And now it's more subtle, you know, but check this out, you know, still it gives the impression he was taken with a big lens and he was extracted out. And I did this with these 2 new filters. Now let me show you the third one. Now the third one is kind of like a tilt shift filter. Let me go back into this photo that we did of Paris. Let's open it up in Camera Raw and straight into Photoshop CS6. And this filter works a bit like the one I just showed you, but it's used to make like tilt shift effect. So this is the photo we corrected earlier. Let me duplicate the background, and you go into the filter, blur, and let's take the tilt shift filter. Now the way the tilt shift filter works is that instead of having a circle, you have lines, and basically anything which is between this point and this point, this is a feathering. Anything which is above that or under that is going to be completely blurred. Let me boost as usual so you can see the effect. You see how it blurred everything? Now usually this tilt shift effect is more used this way. You click around the circle, and then you can move around, and you can of course move the circles individually. Now I think I went a bit too strong on this. It's usually used a bit like this, you know. You can even move, you know, the feathering, something like this, and let's lower the strength of this. Let's just give an illusion that, so this is totally in focus, and this starts to become blurry. Now let's make it a bit more. It's a bit too soft. It's not soft enough, I'm sorry. Okay, let's move this point maybe, and move this point to make it a bit more feathering. I want to make sure that Notre Dame is in focus. And yeah, maybe turn it a bit around, you know, make sure you just put your mouse over this until, yeah, it becomes like a rotation thing, and now you can rotate it, something like this. Okay, let's move the whole thing. I just want to make sure that Notre Dame is in focus. Okay, and that's what we call the tilt shift effect. The tilt shift effect gives the idea that the city is just a micro shot, that it was like just not a real city, but you know, like a minus, yeah, a little small Lego type of city. Let's boost a bit the blur effect, so I exaggerate it a little bit so you can see the result. Yeah, something like this. I click on OK, and I personally don't use so much a tilt shift filter. I mean, blurring, or, you know, making part of photo sharp. This photo is very, very sharp because we did, you know, a whole sharp technique earlier, and making it blur partially really can direct the attention of the viewer, just like the you know, the contrast between anything which is light and anything which is dark. You know, check this out. You see how this is blur here and blurry there. This is the before, and this is the after. I'm not a huge fan of the tilt shift effect, but you know, so you know it's there. You know it's there. So that was the 3 new blur filter in Photoshop CS6.